Hello class, my name is Juan Vargas and my presentation is on a documentary called The End of Poverty. So before I start talking to you about what the film is actually about, I wanted to tell you about the director and the credibility of this film. This film was directed by a person called Philippe Diaz. He was born in Paris and he's been directing films since 1980. Most of his films are on social issues and he has won a lot of awards from some of his works. Also, this film has a lot of credibility because all the people that talk in the documentary have a valid background. By these, I mean that we see a lot of politicians, economists, and historians giving insight on the issue, while we also see personal interviews of people who are actually living through this poverty in places in South America and Africa. The End of Poverty is a documentary that talks about some of the reasons for the poverty in Africa and Latin America. I will go over some of these reasons in my next few slides. For now, here's a map that shows us the percent of population living on under $1 per day. As we can see, most of these places are in Latin America, Africa, and Southeastern Asia. This documentary talks about the reasons for poverty. Is the first reason it starts with the discovery of America in 1492 and the colonization of the Americas. The Americas was a land with incredible amount of resources, and since the Europeans did not have any special affiliation with these people, they just started exploiting them and taking their land with a lot of corruption and oppression. And this documentary talks about how this is an issue that is still going on today. Maybe not in the same ways as before, but it's still going on. I will I will work more on this idea on my next slide. This documentary talks about the capitalism that we're living in the world is what's causing this poverty. What's basically going on is that we have this big elite of people who own all the wealth and they are only looking out for their own benefits and to maximize the wealth that they already have while taking advantage of these people in these places where there are no work standards and stuff, and they're just oppressing them in not a direct way. So this is how they're making most of their money, and these people are just over here trying to make a living, some of them, and this is what causes our poverty. And you may think, why don't these people do something? And it's basically because the governments, most of them are corrupt, and they make policies that help these big companies. And most of this comes from money grants that these companies give to politicians to get their ideas passed through in the government. And some facts that they show us in this film is that in Latin America, the richest 1% of the population receives 400 times as much more income as the poorest 1%. Also, since 1960, third world countries have suffered a 70% drop in price of agricultural exports compared to manufactured goods. The richest 1% of the world's population owns 32% of the land. I was browsing around for examples on my own, and I found this one. In Colombia, the biggest oil company, Ecopetrol, sells the gasoline gallon about 2,700 pesos, about $1.50 per gallon to the gasoline companies. Yet, if you go to put gas in your car, let's say in Bogota, you have to pay around 7,700 pesos, about $3.50. That's more than 100% than how it is sold to the big companies. So this goes to show how even though it's a Colombian company, they're still looking out for their own benefit. And it all shows goes back
to this idea of capitalism.
Okay, so first of all, I just want to clarify something. I actually don't have anything against capitalism. Actually, I do believe it's a very good economic system. The thing is, I believe it should be controlled a little bit more so the wealth doesn't stay just in a few individuals, how is happening right now in the world. So some solutions I came up with was basically popular awareness, honest leaders, and finding a way to educate all these people. And I basically found that I was basically describing some sort of worldwide socialism and this idea that Karl Marx was working with his whole life. Finally, I just want to talk about that because of all these reasons of poverty and inequality in these places, this is why we see revolutionary leaders and groups. Some examples is Fidel Castro, Ernesto Guevara, Hugo Chavez, and they're just basically looking out for their own people, even though they're usually stigmatized as these guys that are just bad and stuff. But anyways, that's a whole another point. But I really invite you guys to look at this documentary. It's on YouTube. Just type in The End of Poverty, and I promise you, you won't waste your time. Thank you.